My name is Sébastien Soka. I'm the CEO of Safrec. We are a technology and compliance company that provide a solution to recruitment agency, MSP and end clients to have visibility on their supply chain to ensure that taxes are accurately calculated, disclosed and paid to HMRC for every single one of their workers.
I'm Charles Harradine. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at Acasem Group. I operate within the Acasem Group MSP. I've been with the business for 6 years and I'm a qualified accountant by trade. So from the 6th of April 2026, Joint and Several Liability is coming into play. What does that actually mean for the client? So currently, it's only the umbrella's responsibility to calculate and pay the employer tax. In April 2026, that's all changing with Joint and Several Liability. And it's important to understand what's changing. So all of a sudden, it's not only the umbrella that's liable, but also the agency. If there's an MSP in place, the MSP, and in some circumstances, the end client as well. So the end client really needs to understand their supply chain and if they're exposed under Joint and Several Liability.
Just to add to that as well, I think it's very important to understand that this new legislation is a strict liability. So no matter the amount of due diligence that's being done by the recruitment agency, the MSP or the end client, if taxes are not accurately calculated properly by the umbrella company or not paid to HMRC by the umbrella company, it creates a liability. And I think that the message from HMRC is very clear, is if taxes are not paid, we are going to get the money somewhere else. And as you said, sometimes it's a recruitment agency, when there is an MSP, the MSP, and they even put the liability on the end client in some circumstances. And to echo what you've just said, you're absolutely right, where really from April 2026, every single party in the supply chain need to understand what is happening down their supply chain. If there is an agency, how the agency engage a worker, if taxes are paid, and obviously if there is an umbrella company as well.
Yeah, and my understanding is HMRC are suggesting that they'll go to the highest party in the supply chain as well to recover that.
Absolutely right, and it's clearly defined in Chapter 11, which is the legislation we're talking about here, where HMRC said that they are going to go after the party that have the contract with the end client, and if there is no party that have the contract with the end client and the end client engage an umbrella company directly, the end client will be the one that is liable. I think there is a lot of reason why HMRC went into this direction, but the main one is, well, HMRC is a very simple creature. When taxes are paid, they're happy. When taxes are not paid, they're not happy. And I think that the problem with umbrella companies is you had a lot of practices over the past 2 decades where a minority of umbrella companies were finding ways to benefit from the help that small businesses have, and you have that with a mini umbrella company. Some other umbrella companies were using tax avoidance scheme where they were going to worker and proposing worker to get a better take-home pay, meaning that HMRC were not getting the full amount of taxes they should have gotten in the first place. And HMRC decided to act. Yeah. And the way they decided to act is to say, well, instead of us telling you if an umbrella company is compliant or not compliant, we are going to create a set of legislation. Obviously, Joint and Several Liability in April 2026 is the last one, but there are other legislation in the past that have the same logic. You take the onshore, the offshore intermediary legislation, or the Criminal Finance Act. And the message here from HMRC is simple, is if you are a party in the supply chain, you need to understand, again, as we've just said, who is in your supply chain, and if taxes are accurately calculated, disclosed and paid to HMRC.
It feels like HMRC are increasing their ability to recover non-paid tax, bringing in these larger organisations like agencies, MSPs and end clients. It's more difficult for them to disappear like smaller umbrellas have done in the past and then Phoenix under new organisations. So this change I think it's going to be massive for the recruitment industry. I think we're going to see a consolidation of umbrellas as non-compliant umbrellas are removed. That's going to put pressure on non-compliant agencies, and there's going to be a reduction in those organisations as well. I've heard this is one of the biggest changes in sort of a decade in terms of managing agencies and agencies that use umbrellas. It feels pretty significant, and I think this is going to create a need for much greater governance control of the supply chain, but also a deeper understanding of what your supply chain are doing. And it's going to create a situation where closer partnerships are going to be needed between, an MSP and an agency and an umbrella, but ultimately the end client need a better understanding as well of their supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what has been happening really is, for the past 2 decades, obviously you had like a more and more importance on the governance part of the supply chain. But I feel like you had a level of I'm the end client, I'm using a recruitment agency, and well, if they don't do things right, my level of exposure is quite low. And same when you have an MSP with a recruitment agency, and obviously that increased over the past 2 decades. But in April 2026, just like an increase of the level of visibility in terms of what's happening in the supply chain that really just increased massively. And now MSP and client recruitment agency really need to understand not only what they do, but what the organization they're working with are doing as well. And I think that is something that's going to be good. And we talked a little bit earlier, just before, about HMRC and why they are doing it. And I know that there is a lot of frustration from recruitment agency that maybe are thinking, well, how can I be responsible for what an umbrella company is doing? And I 100% emphasize with that. On the other side, if you're really looking at and you ask yourself, does this legislation do what it does? Well, yeah, it does. Well, you can see we're having a conversation today. You can see that the industry is talking. The recruitment agency are wondering what they're doing with the umbrella company in terms of due diligence, how they can make sure that taxes are paid to HMRC, and MSP are doing the same, and so are the end client as well. So I think that this legislation that have been creating by HMRC is really doing exactly what it was intended to do, which is making sure that every single party in the supply chain take what the party down the supply chain is doing seriously. I think that one of the most common issue with umbrella companies is the fact that for 2 decades, recruitment agencies have been using umbrella company for the service they provide. And that makes sense because this is what business are doing. You use a business because they provide a service. I think that one of the weakness of it is since 2014, with the onshore intermediary legislation and the offshore intermediary legislation, HMRC started saying, well, actually, you should do a little bit more than just use an umbrella company for what they do. You should start really looking at making sure they do it right. And I think this is one of the weakness of this supply chain that is reducing little by little over time since 2014 or 2017 with the Criminal Finance Act. And now really this legislation is creating the maximum level of exposure for parties in the supply chain. And the weakness is effectively that until today, until organizations like SafeReg that really bring technology to be able to audit umbrella company in real time on what they're doing on the tax elements. Well, you are working with an umbrella company, but never like with an absolute certainty that everything was done correctly. And I think this is a weakness of some supply chain today. The good news is now recruitment agency, OMSP, ON client that really want to have this level of transparency, this level of control, making sure that parties in their supply chain actually pay taxes correctly to HMRC. Well, the good news is now this weakness can be removed and they can have the certainty that the party in their supply chain are compliant on the tax element.
So a strong MSP model, like the Casing Group's model, I believe removes risk from the end client, which is, ultimate goal for the end client. How do we get rid of that risk? Well, the MSP does that. We've had conversations with HMRC about how that structure works, and it ultimately means that liability, the joint several liability, stops with the MSP. So that's really one of the core benefits of having an MSP for an end client. But on top of that, the MSPs are the experts. They've been operating in this field for, years and years, and they've been building out controls and governance. And the Casing Group have been doing that for over a decade. And that's, some of the basic controls around, managing a supply chain in terms of making sure they operate to rules and governance, creating an umbrella PSL that's closely governed, and ensuring contracts are robust enough. But I think this legislation change has made even MSPs look at their governance and controls and elevate them. And some of that is through some of the technology you provide with SafeRec. It's allowing us to get that real-time access that hasn't been easily available. But it's also looking at strengthening that umbrella PSL. With your SafeRec accreditation, that helps strengthen the kind of initial audits and accreditation. And we're not just looking at accreditation anymore, it's that real-time access to the data, real-time audits, which I think all of that combined creates a much more robust MSP model than we've seen before.
And yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it's very important as well to understand that obviously MSP, like Acacium, is bringing value to the end clients. And you might have some end clients or some trust that today are thinking, oh, should we still manage all the workforce recruitment internally, or should we use an MSP? And this new legislation might just be the little bit of the cake that makes them, okay, actually let's use an MSP, because from their point of view, you're absolutely right. When there is an MSP, the MSP is the one that has the liability. And it makes so much more sense now to be an end client or a trust and to say, well, I'm just going to use an MSP to make sure that I don't have to do that internally. I have a partner with the MSPs and know exactly what's happening in terms of legislation, and I have this notion of intelligence to make sure that everything is up to date in terms of legislation, and got this fundamental compliance control as well, or tomorrow on the tax element, but also on do they have the right insurance, do they have the right training, do they have an up-to-date DBS, etc., etc. So I think that we're going to see more and more end clients in healthcare trust go down the route of actually using an MSP.
Yeah, and I think as the legislation comes live, the processes and controls are going to have to evolve over time. These non-compliant umbrellas are going to try and find a way around some of the controls that are put in place. So it's going to be, the MSP is going to have to constantly evolve what they're doing.
Well, I think that for really a decade and a half now, and since the inception of accreditation bodies, everything was about focusing on what was possible. And what was possible was to review periodically the contract, the company structure, the ownership, maybe sometimes the financial, but all these models are missing what is critical, which is, again, we said it multiple times in this video, which is have taxes been accurately calculated and paid to HMRC. I think that what real-time audit is bringing is a solution to exactly what the problem is. It's not about, oh, we're going to get some reassurance that taxes are paid by reviewing the contract. We're going to get reassurance that taxes are paid by auditing the payslip, auditing the RTI, which is the information sent to HMRC, and auditing the HMRC tax account of the umbrella company to make sure that the right amount have been disclosed to HMRC and to make sure it's been paid.
And I think one of the benefits that I've seen from the SafeRec technology and systems are, we're not reliant on third parties providing us data, so we're in control of our own destiny. And that's important as we're taking on more risk as an MSP. But I also think in terms of time as well, the amount of effort historically that's gone into auditing the supply chain is huge. Lots of emails, lots of pay slips and RTI submissions being passed via email. It's time consuming and it's not 100% accurate. So I think this is a game changer. And when I've been speaking to lots of people in the industry, they see SafeRec as the market leader and really the tool that's going to enable the agencies, the MSPs and the end clients to manage this risk.
I do agree, obviously, with that. I'm definitely not going to disagree with that. And we can see it in the number. Today there is over 100,000 payslip and RTIs that is being audited every single week for our supply chain. We have, last week alone, I think is 500 new recruitment agencies who sign up to the platform. So we can see really an entire industry wanted to have this level of visibility because of themselves, sometimes because of the MSPs that just like ask them to have this level of visibility. But fundamentally what we see is really companies that want to take control of their own destiny and making sure that they have evidence that the umbrella companies that they are using in their supply chain is the right partner, it's the right umbrella company. Well, I think that one of the key lessons that you can see in some cases and what you have in healthcare is, especially in healthcare, is that you have workers that want to enforce really their method of engagement. And when you are a temporary worker and you need it, because healthcare workers are needed, worker got leverage. And the best way for them to be engaged is via their limited company. Obviously, they get the gross amounts, they can manage taxes the way they want, they can pay themselves dividends. The reality is that is extremely unlikely to be compliant, especially in the healthcare industry, because healthcare workers are likely to be inside IR35. Inside IR35, that means that employment costs will need to be paid on the amount that effectively they received or that's being paid to the umbrella company. And I think that the lesson, and if there is any worker or any client that are looking at that at the moment, is that it's very important for them to understand that when they recruit healthcare worker, with 99.9% of chances, and I'm being very British here and understating, is very unlikely to be right. Healthcare worker, if they were engaged by the end client, are likely to be employee of the business, and therefore they should pay the same taxes that employee business. And people might be frustrated by hearing that, but that's just the reality of the healthcare or the social care industry, which is when you get a temporary role, you're going to get more money, but you're not going to be able to optimize the money that you get.
So it sounds like, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is for the worker. If the worker's being offered 90% take-home pay, the high probability is it's tax avoidance, and actually that creates not only a risk for the candidate in their personal tax, but going forwards under joint and several liability, a risk for the agency, MSP or end client.
So any rate that is under really 30% taxes is probably something that the worker should have a look at. And if it's under 25 or 20%, except if the salary is very, very low, they're likely to be in a tax avoidance scheme and they need to ask themselves the right question. Because we're talking about the liability here, but fundamentally the first liability is on the worker. Every single taxpayer in the country is responsible for making sure that the right amount of taxes is paid to HMRC.
So KCM Group and its MSP has, I believe, been a market leader on this. So back in March 2025, we started auditing our supply chain and holding them to account to an umbrella PSL that was underpinned by SafeRec and your product. And the reason for that is we understood the additional safety that provided us as an MSP. So this is almost or over a year ahead of the joint and several liability changes. Since then, we've also strengthened our terms and conditions with our agencies and umbrellas. We've increased our audit activity. We've re-reviewed the umbrella PSL, important to continue to review that and reissued that to our suppliers. And we've also started to work with you with SafeRec and looking at how we can use your product and offer you some ideas on how that product can be improved. And I feel like the partnership that we've got and all those additional controls we've put in place has really put us in a great space ready for the 6th of April. But as I mentioned before, this isn't a one-off. We need to continue to evolve our controls and governance as we work through the immediate period after, but ongoing as well, because the umbrellas are going to look, the non-compliant umbrellas are going to look for ways around this governance, and we as an MSP have to protect ourselves, but also our end clients and candidates as well. If I was an end client and I'd watched this interview and I thought, what was the one thing I was going to take away from it? For me personally, it would be, is now the time to engage an MSP? As we spoke about earlier, the MSP will totally remove that risk for the end client. It gives all of the activity to the experts that have been working on controls, governance and understanding the market for over the last year, ready for JSL. So is now the chance and is now the right time to look to outsource that risk and outsource all of that activity that's going to come April 26th?
Absolutely, and I think that the next thing as well is just like, you want to make sure that if you're a CFO today, the next question is, who is my supply chain? Do I have an MSP? If I don't have an MSP, how many recruitment agencies are being used by my entire organization? What controls there is, what contracts there is, how workers are being engaged, are they being paid directly by the agency? If it's the case, is it a contract of employment? If it's not the case, either an umbrella company. And all of that is questions that CFO, senior manager that are working for a client at the moment, they need to absolutely understand at 100%. And if there is some uncertainty around that, the next question is, how do we get this certainty? And either the role is to invest a lot of resources to understand that themselves, or to use a third party to manage their entire workforce recruitment, like an MSP for an example, which will remove the risk for them under JSL.
And it feels like 6th of April is only around the corner.
Absolutely.
And if you haven't started to carry out some of this activity that you've been talking about there as an end client, you need to immediately start looking at that, because the clock is ticking and it's a lot of work and effort and a lot of resource to go into that level of detail of understanding your supply chain if you don't already understand it.
Absolutely.